Hello, geometry students. Today we're going to be talking about congruent shapes. If two polygons are congruent, it means that they have the exact same size and shape. And in order for polygons to be congruent, every corresponding part must be congruent, every corresponding angle must be congruent, and every corresponding side must be congruent. And when you're talking about congruent shapes, remember they might not look it at first because you could slide them, flip them, rotate them in space, but as long as there's a way that you could get them to line up with every corresponding part exactly the same on top of each other, they could be considered congruent shapes. Now, if two polygons are congruent, then you can write what's called a congruency statement. And here's an example of what a congruency statement looks like. Now, it's really important to line things up correctly because when you write a congruency statement, you are letting the world know that angle A is congruent to angle B. You're letting the world know that side CD is congruent to side GH, just by the way you've lined up the naming of the shapes. So when you write this congruency statement, all of this is implied. All of this is true. Just from this congruency statement, we know every corresponding side is congruent and every corresponding angle is congruent. So learning to write a congruency statement takes a little bit of practice. So on this particular slide, we are told that these two polygons are congruent. And we see that they are because every corresponding angle has the same mark and every corresponding side. So if I was going to name the first polygon, and by the way, when you name a polygon, you can start at any letter and then you just have to go around the shape without picking up your pencil. So if we're going to start with P, we could say P-O-N-M, or we could say P-M-N-O, but for this case, I just named it P-O-N-M. P-O-N-M. And so once I've named the first one, I'm locked into how I'm going to finish my congruency statement. So if I'm naming this P-O-N-M, it goes down the 3 scratch side, 2 scratch side, 1 scratch side, and the 4 scratch side. So 3, 2, 1, and then 4. So that means on this other shape, I have to go 3, 2, 1, 4. In other words, I have to go X, W, Z, Y. To complete my congruency statement so that everything that is the same lines up. P and X should line up and they have the same marks on them. All right, so you pause and finish the second pair. The first thing I recommend you do is mark your diagram. We know that the definition of congruency means, of a segment means if you have the same measurement, then you are congruent. So 3 centimeters, 3 centimeters gets the same scratch. They have the same length, they get congruency marks. If you mark your diagram, it'll help you figure out which sides are corresponding to each other. And then to finish the congruency statement, you have to look carefully. If this shape is called CATH, 3 scratch, 2 scratch, 1 scratch, no scratch, then I have to do the same here, 3, 2, 1, no, or USGE. So pause and complete the congruency statement. If this is X, Y, Z, up the 1 scratch side, 3 scratch side, 2, then here I have to do 1 scratch, 3 scratch, 2, TRS. Okay, how about the next pair? Pause, complete the congruency statement, and then press play. These two triangles share this side, but they're rotated in space, so be careful. A, B, C goes 2 scratch side, 1 scratch, and down the shared side. If I'm going to name the first one ABC, 2, 1, 3. So I have to do the same over here, 2, 1, 3, or CDA. Pause and solve for the measure of angle V. First thing you want to do is draw your diagram and mark it according to the congruency statement that you're given. Then you want to mark any information you're given about angle measurements onto the diagram. And then you can use triangle sum to find the measure of angle S, knowing that S and V are congruent according to this congruency statement. So pause and decide if you're allowed to write a congruency statement, and if so, write one. The first thing to know is that vertical angles are always congruent. The next thing to decide to mark is that the definition of congruency says that if I have the same length, I can say that I'm congruent. And now you can see that every corresponding side and every corresponding angle are all congruent. And so we can conclude the polygons are congruent, and we can write the congruency statement. So pause and find the unknowns and then press play. Start by marking your diagram according to the congruency statement. Then you can use triangle sum to find your missing value. And plug it in to find the angle measurements. So pause and fill in this whole section based on this congruency statement, and then press play for the solution. The first thing you want to do is mark your diagram. According to this congruency statement, once you've marked your diagram, that will help the problem solve itself, and see if we match. Pause and answer these questions, and then press play for the solution. First thing you want to do is draw a diagram and mark it according to this congruency statement. Once you've done that, you will see all the corresponding congruent sides and all the corresponding congruent angles. And that is it for the introduction to congruent shapes. So I will leave you with these puppies and wish you a wonderful day.